Well, hello, my beautiful creative friends. I'm really excited to be here. I know it's so sporadic, but I recently released this free acrylic paint guide. It's something you can download. The link is below in the description of the video. And basically, it's just talks about what is acrylic paint, the different types of acrylic paint. So, for example, heavy body, fluid acrylics, high flow acrylics, and acrylic inks. I just divided into like 4 categories, and then basically a few basic techniques that can be done with acrylic paint. So I thought it would be great if I could show you some of these and how to do them. The only one I cannot show you today is pouring. It is not something that I can do live, and I'm not an expert in this, but there's lots of videos about pouring that you can do, paint pouring, that you can see on YouTube, online. So that's not something that I want to do. And the reason why I want to go with these basic ones, because like it's always good to start from somewhere, to have like these basic techniques that we can apply to any project that we want, whether it is for the full project or just for like part of the project, okay? But along with that, I'm releasing a class. I released the sale of a class. It's called 10 Acrylic Paint Techniques, but it's for mixed media. So it's a little bit more involved. So while these that I'm doing today are very simple, like that we use day to day, these are the ones that will be more involved. And I'll show you some samples of the ones, and then we'll get started on the other ones. So there's things like this that almost looks like pouring, but it's not made with pouring, and it creates like that marbleized effect. There's also things like stenciling. So I'm going to show you how to stencil and reverse stencil there's like about 3 stencil techniques with acrylic paints. There's also stamping techniques with acrylic paints, different ones. This is another one that goes with the other one. There is also resist techniques. There's a few resist techniques with acrylic paints that are really, really good. So what the difference is between what I'm doing today and what I'm doing in my class is that these are like more mixed media oriented. And what I mean by mixed media is that they use 2 or more products to create the technique. So today I'm only going to be using acrylic paint to create these simple techniques, and you'll see how easy they are to do. But for the mixed media class, it will be like, they're not difficult. They're super easy techniques to do. But the difference is that we're going to using 1 or more products, hence it makes it mixed media. Now this class is only $12. That's all it is. And it's being offered live on July 25th. I think all the details are in the link below. But you can always, you'll have it to keep. So you can watch it as many times as you need. If you want to go back to one of the techniques, you can do that, and so forth. So I'll be dividing in, I always say 10 techniques, but it ends up being way more because I just go off and give you as much information as I can. So if you want to sign up, the link is below in the description, or you can click it at the top of the chat, which I put as well. This is for the thing. You can also download the free guide. It's free to download for you if you want, and that is basically free. You can have it along with this. I printed it out, or you can have it like you can read it on your computer or on an iPad or whatever you have. Now, for these techniques, we're only going to need acrylic paint, and this could be either heavy body acrylic paint, which is heavy body as the name says it. It's like heavy. It looks more like peanut butter as opposed to the liquid acrylic paint, and that one is more liquidy, it's more fluid, and so forth. The other 2 are the high flow that I mentioned, and the inks, which are very liquidy, and they're more used for very transparent techniques, and also airbrushing and things like that, which I'm not going to be doing today. But airbrushing is also a technique. There's so many techniques you can do with acrylic paints. It becomes overwhelming to really like just know how many there are. Like, it's just insane. So you're going to get these today, and I will be using these because these are the basic techniques for a lot of these ones as well, because they go hand in hand. Things like blending and dry brushing and splattering, that's like, goes hand in hand. So let's start with the simplest one, and that's called dry brush technique, okay? And for this, we need usually very, very little bit of paint. Or maybe you don't need depending on what your surface is, but for this purposes, I'm going to put just a little bit of paint on my mat, okay? Now, the key to dry brushing, okay, is that you put very little paint on the brush, but even with the small paint that you put, you still have to kind of remove most of it from the paint, from the brush. So that way you're applying it like this. Now, the other part of the technique, besides having very little bit of a little bit of paint, is that you're applying it to the surface in a very, I want to say quick, but you're not putting the whole paintbrush down. So you're kind of like going on the surface. And that kind of creates that really cool dry brush effect. Can you see that? It's kind of like hard to see. I'm going to add a little bit more just to show you. Again, I'm going to blend in, and I'm going to just add. Now, dry brush effect, it's really good for things like adding texture, but also I used to use it a lot when I want to create, it also is good for adding texture and scratch marks. That's what I wanted to say for a painting. But I used it a lot when I want to put highlights, like almost like silver or gold highlights on something. You can do this over like a stenciled area. Basically anything works, okay? Now, so that's dry brushing. Dry brushing is a very simple technique. You can see that there is lots of texture in it. And also, there is also like you can make line marks. You can make like little lines with it. I mean, anything goes with this. Okay. Now, the next one is Impasto, but I'm going to skip it for a second. I'm actually going to go to blending, because blending is what you can think of is basically just blending two colors together. So first there is the blending of the paint itself to have it very, very smooth. Okay. So that's one of the things you want to do. But there's also, you can do it with two colors, and that works really well as well. So one of the really key techniques of blending. Okay. So if you want to really do it well, okay, I mean, there's not science to this, okay? So make sure you clean your brush in between colors so you don't get the blue everywhere, or you can use a separate brush if you want. And then I'm going to grab this purple, but I'm actually going to start it from the other end. And right where it reaches the middle, it will blend. Now sometimes, I mean, I think it dried up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do again and blend the other side, okay? So I'm going to add some more. Okay, now there we go. There we have the blending of the two colors together. So you want to kind of blend and make it look really smooth. That's what you want between the two colors, and you get whatever the colors that you chose between them, okay? So that is a really nice way to add color, and it works really well. And this is blending. Now, I don't know if you've heard the word impasto. Now I'm going to go to it. But impasto means, it's a word in Italian. And basically what it means is that impasto is like paste. It's the same word as paste. And you're applying thick layers of paint over your surface using a palette knife or a paintbrush or something like that. So let me show you, okay? And this is really nice. And if you see those really nice like paintings where they have like really thick strokes, that is impasto. So I like this, okay? I like the impasto things, and I'm going to I like how thick it looks. It's hard to see. I think the reflection does not give you like a good way of seeing it. Let me put some more paint. And you see how I love these colors. So I am definitely using these. If you have any questions, also please don't hesitate to ask. Okay, so now what you do is you can layer them. And I just realized I mixed two colors together. Let me wipe off the color because I really want you to see that you can put another color on top. Okay, so I'm gonna grab the turquoise, and you can add like little like. Okay, so that's how thick it becomes. That's how impasto becomes super thick. If you follow Finnabar and with her paints, she called her paints impasto. They're super thick. They're even thicker than heavy body acrylics, and they work really well for this. Although I prefer the heavy body. This is a brand that I really like. It's quite inexpensive, the Amsterdam one. I mean, it's expensive but not expensive, if you know what I mean. Like some of the paints can be really expensive, but Amsterdam makes really good quality for student grade, which is perfect for me. So as I said, you can make like really nice textures, beautiful. If you want to use these ones for things like how do you call this, gel printing, they're perfect for that. Okay, now going to that, right beside underneath it, I have, and I'm not going to go in order because I really want to show you similar techniques. There is the palette knife technique. So with the impasto, all it means is that you're kind of putting paint as if it's paste. So you could even apply it if you wanted to with like paint, with a paintbrush, right? So I could like apply something thick like that onto it as well. Okay. But with a palette knife, it's specifically like you're using a palette knife to create designs or textures. So that is another one that you can use. And let me like show you. So you could like do things like apply like this. You could like apply strokes in different directions. So there's different palette knives. Have you seen the different types of palette knives? There's so many different kinds. I wouldn't even be able to tell you what each of them are for, but there's lots of different palette knives. I mean, lots. It becomes quite crazy. I like the circular ones because again, they create that circular effect or that half circular effect. But in reality, anything kind of goes. Okay, so this is really nice to do. There's not really science. You could also like create. I like creating with the palette knife. I like creating. Even using it like on the side and creating lines with it. So you could create lines in the paint and so forth. Okay, so I mean, I'm just showing you the techniques. It's not specifically to like do anything with them, but imagine a very cool card where, let's say you're doing a card or an art journal and you create a very neat background. Now for next week, in 2 weeks when I do the other class, I will go more in depth into each technique. This is just showing you like the different techniques like on the surface, but I will go into in depth because the other ones require more than one product. So you're going to be getting like a lot of information. So I do recommend if you sign up for the class that you bring a little notebook. You can make notes. You can bring the guide as well and so forth. Okay. Okay. Dripping, one of my favorite techniques. Now, you could do dripping with heavy body acrylic paint, and I will show you both. Let's kind of do both to show you the difference. Okay. So let me just do here. Okay. So we're going to add, let's add a little, this is the heavy body. I'm going to add a little bit of it here. Okay. Should have put the dripping one down here so when it drips down, but that's okay. The other one I'm going to do is I'm going to add liquid acrylic right beside it so you can see the difference. So what the difference will be, whoops, Well, this one is pretty thick. Maybe it has dried up. But what the difference usually with the liquid acrylic is that it starts moving, and you can see that if I tap it here, the liquid acrylic starts moving. The high flow acrylic would go even more. But this one remains exactly in the same spot. It will not move. It's heavy. Okay. But in order to make it move, you can add things like water. So for example, if you add water, okay, water, or if you spray with water. I think I added too much paint, but add a lot. You have to add a lot of water, okay? It starts dripping, okay? And I'll let it drip all the way, even though we'll cover it later on with the sponge, okay? But definitely you can do the same thing with the other ones. So if I add a lot of water to the thick one, and you could even use a spray bottle. Hold on. Water it down. So I'm trying to control the drips, but usually I prefer not controlling it, but I'm only controlling it because I'm trying to stay within the frame, okay? But you see how much I water it down to be able to let it drip down the page, okay? So drips are really fun. They are one of the things I use the most, especially in my art journaling. I love dripping. It's one of my favorite techniques to do. So yeah, I love doing that. So you can also wipe it off. Oops, okay. Anyway, so that is dripping. It's super easy. And I see I'm off screen again. So now there's a big, I don't want to say argument, but thing about between splattering and spattering. Lots of people, like I use the word splattering for basically everything when you splatter paint. However, some people say that when you're adding splatters, it's actually spatters. So English language thing, we'll just leave it as it's the English language. And, I think they're both correct, but whatever it is, whoever wants to say it, whichever way, that's okay. And what I love doing is especially for the splattering. So you could have, like I'll show you here in this one, you can have like the splatters technique, like going side to side, okay? So I like doing that. I'll show you. I'm going to just water this a little bit. And so you want a pretty watery texture if you want to splatter. So I find that this is splattering for me. But I think kind of like what Jackson Pollock did, that's also splattering. And I'm having a hard, maybe I'll get a bigger paintbrush. Hold on. Yeah, I need a bigger paintbrush for this. Let's see if I can get like better, bigger splatters. No, I can't get splatter. I can't seem to. Oh, you know what? I know what it is. I find that for splatters, you need to kind of drop paint. And let me show you what I mean. Hold on. Okay. This is what's called the high flow. They're very liquidy, okay? And I think this will help with the splatters. Okay, you see, like I can actually make like splatters like this, be like this. I'll be very prepared. Okay, well now I just have this like, so you see how liquidy the high flow acrylic is, to the point that even if I use water, I'll really make it liquidy. But what I like about it is that you can easily create spatters or splatters or whatever you want to call it. Now, there we go. That's what I want. Just want like this splatters. There. Okay, so that's what I call splattering. Okay, it's just splattering everywhere. Okay, so do you get the point of what I was trying to do? As opposed to these are spatters, like really small ones. Okay, you can also achieve these by using a paintbrush, and not a paintbrush, a toothbrush, okay? So if you want, I'm gonna just use some of the paint that is here because some of it's splattered everywhere. Okay. And you could, some more paint. you could use this. It makes a big mess, but you could use this, you see, to create these really cool spatters and splatters. Okay, so the difference is, as you can see, these still created these lines. I think like people just cannot differentiate those that are like always, because I've had a lot of comments about this, that I'm calling it the wrong thing. But I feel like, you know what? Splatters could be like, or like, kind of paint splatters. And then there is the spatters, it's like spattering of paint everywhere. Okay. So that I think kind of solves the problem maybe. But I will still use them and interchange the name between them. So it's okay. The next one, I'll get to Graphito soon, but I want to show you sponging since I have so much paint that kind of went out here. You can use it with any type. So you could make really cool texture. Okay, and it's one of my favorite ways to create texture is with sponges. There's this one, and there's also like sponge daubers. Okay, like these. I love buying them on Amazon or at the dollar store. And you can use either liquid paint, or I will show you again, you can use the thick one as well. Okay, so you could use thick and create really nice texture. Okay, so sponging is one of the best ways to create texture on your background. Okay, it's really, really fun to do. I mean, for me, it just brings me back to my childhood where I used to just love creating stuff for fun, like not having to worry about how things look. Imagine just splattering everything and having a fun doing it. That's what, for me, sponging does for me. And there's also stippling, which is similar to sponging, but the difference is that you're using something like, it's called a stipple brush. And it's a very hard brush, almost feels like horsehair. And you're going to use it, let's see, and it's almost like a dry brush. Okay, so it creates these really cool textures. Now, both sponging and stippling, you might notice that they're used a lot for things like creating foliage on trees or clouds or creating flowers. Okay, it's just quite common to do that. And it works better. You see, I just added some of the more liquidy thing. And it works nicely, but it works better with like the heavy body because it gives you a drier effect. You might even want to dry up the brush a little bit more. Okay, so let me just show you up here. I have a little bit of this just because I ran out of space there. But look how pretty this effect looks like. Okay, so the stippling is really, really nice. Okay. So you can do so much stuff with acrylic paint. And let me show you this one. They call it Graphito. Also another Italian name, since probably a lot of the Italian painters were a lot of the painters were Italian once upon a time. But they were also Dutch, so I don't know why. But this is a very cool one. And let me show you how it works, okay? So I'm going to actually divide the square in half. I'm going to leave part of it white and part of it I'm going to paint with another color. Okay, so I want to add like a light color, like maybe let's do the turquoise again. Okay, and the first thing you need to do, and this one I have to just dry in between. Okay, so I'm going to use a little bit of the paint and just to create a background. This technique might remind you of your childhood as well. Now this part needs to be dried, so I'm going to dry it up for a second with my heat tool. So in the meantime, if you missed it before, just want to just talk about the techniques that I'm going to be doing on the 25th. Will be completely different from these ones. We will be using a lot of different products and techniques, but anything that you have at home will probably work. You don't have to go buy anything. If you have paint from the dollar store, that will work as well. Acrylic paint has a great property. It's like a plasticky kind of, it has like a polymer plastic inside, so it resists things. And it's really great for things like resist techniques and stenciling and stamping. And gosh, I have so much stuff planned for you. So whether you can attend in person on the 25th or you want to watch it afterwards, you can do that as well. It's a really great class with a lot of different techniques. So yeah, I'm just showing you again. This is the class. The link is this is the class, and the link is below in the description. Okay. So now I'm going to show you what Graphito is. Let's take a darker paint because it doesn't have to be darker, but it works well when it's dark. Okay. So I need my paintbrush. 1 second. All right. I'm going to take, this is just dark blue. It's what is it? Payne's Gray, I think. I'm going to cover everything, okay? Now you want this layer to be quite thick. I'll show you why. Not super thick, but I mean, you want to use heavy body for this layer because you want to be able to see the markings, and I'm going to show you. What Graphito is basically you're creating marks inside through the paint, okay, to reveal what's underneath. So I'm going to use the back of my paintbrush just because I have like that. And as you can see, I don't know why I have blue here, which even though it was white, oh, it tainted it. Okay, sorry. So it didn't quite work the way I thought. I thought it was going to show white underneath, but I think it just tainted I had to put probably gesso underneath, white gesso. But this is what it is. It's like you're basically creating, almost scraping into the paint. And that creates really, really nice texture. So I think for us, it just basically all turned blue, which is interesting, even though there was. Now, if you would have put green underneath, it would have shown green. I had to, my mistake was I wanted to show white underneath, but my mistake was that I didn't paint with white first. So that's what I should have done. Maybe I can show you a little piece here because I do have some white, and my point was to show you in white. So here, I'm going to like just put a little bit of white here. Okay, this is just white paint. And I'm going to dry it up. I mean, it's a nice extra surface that I have. I kind of left a little bit of space. If you haven't downloaded the free guide, feel free to do so. As I said, the link is in the description, so you can download it and be able to like compare the different techniques that I did today. Plus, it will give you some information about the different types of acrylic paints. Okay, now I'm going to add some paint on top. I guess we've used so much purple, but that's okay. Let's do it differently. So I'm just doing it with my finger just because I don't want to get the paintbrushes dirty again. Okay, so there it is. And now I'm going to scrape into it, hoping that it will be white. There we go. Okay, so that was the difference. I had to so you could do this, for example, let's say you want to personalize a card. You could do this and actually write somebody's name as if it was written in paint. I don't know. That's the idea I just got. So there's just lots of options, especially with acrylic paint. So let's go over them again, just so we can recap. The dry brushing technique, you want to use it with a very a flat, dry brush. So you want to use the heavy body. It doesn't have to be heavy body. You can use like more liquidy, but make sure that you take most of it off. So when you apply it, the paint is almost dry, and then you lightly apply it on the surface. So you don't want to go full force onto your paint, onto your surface. You want to go with it very, very lightly. Then you have impasto technique, where you're using palette knives or paint brushes to create really thick strokes, or kind of like strokes, I guess, on your background to create beautiful designs. Uh, you also have blending, where you're blending two colors. So this obviously is not part of it. This came from the splatters that I was trying to get the whole time. The dripping, obviously, is common sense, like what I'm doing, but the more water you add to drips, the better the dripping will become. It will take away a little bit of the pigment. I mean, it will become more watery. It will more resemble things like watercolors, but the only difference is that this is permanent. Acrylic paints are permanent. Splatters, as you can see, you're basically splattering everywhere. You can, like, just like do anything to splatter. You can use any tool to splatter with. I specifically love the organic splatters, although this thing spilled, so you know what happened. But things like Jackson, like the Jackson Pollock, where he actually throws paint everywhere, that's beautiful to me. There's spattering, which, again, splattering and spattering, I kind of feel like they're very close to each other. But spatters are like the little tiny ones that you can do with a small paintbrush or with the toothbrush. You have the palette knife work, which, again, is done specifically with a palette knife. And a lot of artists use this, especially those that paint specifically with palette knives. I use it more to apply paint and to create textures. This graphito is, how you're making designs, and inside the, how do you call this? You're making them inside the paint. You're making markings inside the paint. Then there's sponging and stippling. So very similar ones. So I hope you enjoyed this little taste of acrylic paint techniques. These are, like, as I said, some of the basic ones. But if you do want to join the my more, like, it's not advanced. I want to use the word advanced just because there's more techniques and they're more involved, but they're super easy to do. You will see once you join it. But when I say it's more geared towards mixed media, because we're going to mix more than just one thing. So in this case, we just did acrylic paint, but as we go with these techniques, we start mixing them with other products or tools that create really cool textures. So if that's something that you're interested in, please sign up. It's only $12 to sign up, and it's being taught live on July 25th, or you can watch it afterwards if you can make it at that time. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, feel free to message. Bye, everyone.